David Cohen will be our moderator for our event today. David is a visionary leader and connector in the legal innovation space. As founder and president of the Cohen Group, he drives a premier organization that has evolved from the nation's leading search firm for senior legal leaders and next-gen technologists for a hub of cutting-edge legal events and thought leadership. David is also the founder of the Summit on Legal Innovation and Disruption, a global series that convenes the most innovative minds in the legal industry to tackle pressing challenges and opportunities. Those are David's credentials, but personally, I enjoy David as an individual, as a leader, as a team member, and within his organization. I've had the pleasure of knowing David for quite some time and watching him just draw in audience members. I hope you enjoy the way that he draws you into the discussion today, and hopefully you feel inspired by the end of today's sessions. Welcome to David.
Good morning. Esther, stay with me for a moment. Stay with me. Good morning, Detroit. How are you? You know, 120 years ago, right down the block, Henry Ford started something called the Industrial Revolution. And Detroit is really, with Hanamid's investment in this symposium, in transferring knowledge and bringing us all together, continues that tradition. So to Hanamid, thank you so much for having me and having you. Can I ask you all just to stand up for just a moment? And then join me center stage, won't you? Whoop. Everybody feel better standing up for a moment? All right, now you can sit down. I know that always feels better after a little keynote.
Make me nervous.
No, you don't have to be nervous. I'm going to do all the work up here, okay? So let's talk about AI versus GAI. What is AI and what is GAI? Do you want to give the example or do you want me to do it?
No, it's all you. Take the show.
So I want you to imagine AI as a really talented super paralegal. This paralegal is tireless, works 24/7. Whatever information you want, this paralegal will go and bring it back to you. That's AI. What's GAI? GAI is a senior associate. I need this binder put together. I need a contract put together. I need a brief put together. GAI will actually put that together for you and will help you think a little bit. Let's have a little chat, shall we? With my GAI, I want to have a little conversation, exchange of ideas. What do you think about do you have some ideas on how we might be able to manage this Ford contract?
I think you should bring up all the experts to talk on the topic.
I think that's a great idea. Let's just do some table introductions before we start, and then I'm going to bring the panel up. If you would, just around your tables, who are you, where are you, what would you like to get out of today, and then I'm going to bring our panel up. So just introduce yourselves to each other so you get to know who you are around your tables. I'm sure you've done that already, but just one more time, and then I'm going to have Toby, Nikki, and Joe, come on up. Can we give Amanda a mic? Amanda, can you get... Amanda, are you there? Do we have you? So how many of you know the difference? How many of you have actually used ChatGPT? Fantastic. So we've got some experiential knowledge. How many of you have used Copilot? Great. And how many of you have used Harvey? How many of you can explain the difference between Chat, Copilot, and Harvey? 1, 2. Amanda's going to help us with that, and then Joe's going to take it over from there. Amanda, if you would, who are you, where are you, and what's the difference in 2 minutes or less between those three?
Sure. Is this on? Yeah. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda. I work at Harvey. Before this, though, I was a litigator at Latham & Watkins in New York for about 6 years. So tools like OpenAI, ChatGPT, Copilot, those types of general tools are really, really good at giving you high-level answers across a wide variety of topics and subject matters, but they're not specifically tailored to any particular use case or industry. Harvey, on the other hand, leverages its partnerships with companies like OpenAI and Microsoft, but works with top legal minds in order to create a tool that's specifically used in the legal industry and professional services. And if you want to learn more, we've got a booth out back.
Fantastic. Thank you very, very much. All right, Joe, if you would you kick us off? I'm just going to run down the panel very quickly. Who are you, where are you, and what do you do?
Absolutely.
And then we'll come right back around.
Okay, hi everybody. This is my second year here, so thank you for having me back. I guess I didn't mess up too bad last year. Joe Borstein, I'm the CEO of LexFusion, and basically what we do is we sift through the, now we believe, 6,000 legal tech companies. We find teams and products and ideas and problems that we think are kind of worthy and ready for prime time, and we help them grow a lot like an accelerator. So worked with Case Text and others that were super early in the generative AI revolution, and have been really excited to see how firms and corporate counsel have adopted it, especially Huntington.
We're going to get into the scorecard with you.
Yep.
And how much money is flowing in. We all want to know where that is. Nikki?
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to be here. This is my first time ever in Detroit, so even though it's a very short time, I'm already kind of impressed by the city and want to come back. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Legal Tech Hub. I'll just, by way of background, I'm a lawyer. I was a litigator. I practiced for 10 years. I also practiced in-house for a little while with media companies. And then, much like Esther, I ran innovation at law firms, where I was responsible for looking at the pain points lawyers had and helping them with problem solving, which often involved technology. And Legal Tech Hub is a directory of all of the legal technology solutions globally, providing objective, high-quality data and information along with market reports to help people navigate what is an increasingly murky, confusing ecosystem with so many tools that are legitimately helpful, but also can make it really difficult to decide what you should be using and implementing.
Can you say that one more time? It's a directory?
Oh,
how is that broken down?
It's a directory of legal technology solutions broken down by use case, but it is also, we have a subscription platform, which is insights and analysis on the market, so market reports and that kind of thing. We also do advisory to law firms as well as to legal technology companies.
Fantastic. And just four examples of how it breaks down, the categories in which it breaks down.
Well, I like to say that we actually coined the phrase AI legal assistant, because back in March last year, when Case Text launched, we thought we actually need a category for this. We now have Harvey and Case Text. What are we going to call it? So we called it AI legal assistant. That would be one of the categories. And by the way, at that time, there were those two. We now have over 70 of them in the directory. That's how quickly that category has just catapulted. Wow. Others would be contract review, deal point extraction, and litigation timelines chronologies. But any use case that you're looking to address, there is now technology that addresses that.
Contracts?
Oh, yeah.
M&A?
Oh, yeah.
IP?
Oh, yeah. You can go on, David. The answer is yes for basically everything.
I'm going to get to Toby in a minute, but I want to know, in the years that you've had it, how many years have you had this directory?
We launched in October 2020.
2020. So in 4 years, how much money? There's founders that found the companies, and then there's funders that fund the companies. How much funding do you all think has flown into or found its way into this space? 4 years, 500 million, raise your hand. 500 million. Do I have 500 million going once? Do I have 100 million? $100 million in funding going into the space. Or more. Let me start again. Bad question. 100 million or more, raise your hand. 500 million or more, raise your hand. $1 billion or more, raise your hand. 2 billion. 3 billion. I'm looking to my left because he knows the answer.
I actually don't.
How much money is rough number?
So I don't know the actual amount of money that has gone in. I think a possibly more interesting metric is the amount of money that's gone out. And just right now, Lex Fusion is working with 11 companies. In just our 11 companies, we've had 3 9-figure exits. You know, 1 or 2 close to $1 billion in a few years.
Valuation.
Well, exit
Valuation or
means
actual
it's
exit.
real. Like, you know, you actually get the money. Everything else, you know, valuation. When you get a funding round of 100 million and it's valued at 4 billion, that's very exciting and very interesting. But until you have an exit event, obviously that's paper money. I'm talking about the real stuff that comes in and you can spend.
I will say that 2018 was the first year, I think, 2017 or 2018, where funding in legal tech reached over $1 billion in 1 year. And I believe it's more than 5 billion now. So its growth is significant.
So my goal before I introduce Toby's our economist amongst other things, so he's going to put some context on this. If all of you come smart today and leave just a little bit smarter and have some motivation and some curiosity that's just a little bit more than what you walked in with, and that's going to be a successful day. Come smart, leave smarter, and just a little bit more curious, if not radically curious. So here's some framework around, and why do I care? Because all of this impacts your career. It impacts the rate of change. The more you lean in, the more marketable you'll be. The more marketable you'll be, the more you're going to be part of the future as opposed to pushed off by the future. Toby, who are you, where are you, and what's coming up for you?
Good morning. My name's Toby, and I'm the godfather of legal pricing. Esther referred to me that this morning. I have my own consultancy, Deviate Legal Strategies, but prior to that, I actually had a job like Esther's at a couple of Am Law 50 firms. My focus on innovation is on making money. Like my former boss, this was his title for me. He said, "Toby, you're the prophet of profit." So I have a very focused, and it's actually both on the law firm side and on the client side, because as a pricing professional, I have a lot of direct conversations with clients, and it was always, how do we get to a win-win pricing point? But I had a deep understanding of law firm profitability and the business of all that. And also, I think I have a strong understanding of how clients make purchase decisions.
How do you see the impact of generative AI, this super associate, if you will, who can work with you, who can take a lot off your plate, make you more productive? How do you see that impacting the audience here today? And so you've got inside counsel, outside counsel, you've got innovators and disruptors, funders and founders all in the room. How do you see this impacting the landscape?
Well, I'll start on the law firm side.
That'd be great.
I take a very economist point of view at this, and the services industry generally and the legal services industry specifically have never experienced a measurable increase in productivity with innovation. And by productivity, I don't mean billable hours. I mean how many hours it takes to produce a legal output. And we have, as an industry, and I've been in this industry my entire professional career, we've never really experienced that. Other industries have. David mentioned the automotive industry, which you all know the Henry Ford story. I'll give you a different stat. In the agricultural market in 1900, 40% of US workers were in agriculture. Now it's 2%, and the output is way higher than it was back then. We're about to go into a phase of that. And so what will happen? Well, in agriculture, the agriculture companies, they were able to retain the value generated by this kind of innovation. If you bill on time and materials, which is also called the billable hour, that value is just going to go straight to your client. So law firms, I'm sorry, you're going to make big investments in generative AI, and your ROI may well be negative unless you change the way you approach this. And I actually liked some of the things Connor said. I liked his analogy to electricity, because I'm seeing a lot of firms just sort of randomly trying things, which is good because they're learning how to use this. But if I was a firm, I would flip the question. And what I would say is, where do we want to win in the market? Because this is not just cheaper and faster, it's better. And so you will gain competitive advantage. So if you're a law firm saying, where are we going to put our generative AI investments? Say, where do we want to kick rear end in the market? Is it M&A? Is it patent litigation? And then I would go and say, okay, now we're going to innovate in this practice. Gen AI is one tool among quite a few that will lead to competitive advantage in that.
Yep.
On the client, real quick, on the client side, I would actually be doing something very similar and saying, where does it hurt? And it's probably going to be in higher volumes of lower risk work. And if I were a client, I would be going to my law firm and saying, look, this is where it hurts. Let's get into a partnership and see what we can do to make this better, faster, cheaper, and do it in a way that the firm can still make money. Because trust me, you want your firms to be profitable.
Joe, hold on one second. Melanie, do we have a mic that can move around the room? We do? We've got one. Fantastic. Ryan's got fantastic. So the question before I go to Joe, I just want to set it up. So those of you that raised your hand and said, I'm using ChatGPT, I'm using Copilot, how are you using it to be more effective, be more efficient? What do you think the impact is going to be on the economics of the business of law? How do you see this impacting, right? So I'd love to get a compare and contrast of this is the best thing that's going to happen from my practice. This is the best thing that's happening in-house. I would love to get a story from the audience of what you're doing and how you're doing it and the impact it's having on the business of law. Joe, and then we'll get a mic. Otherwise, I'm going to have to call on Angela from GM.
Just to continue from the point of view of the law firms in particular, I think it's just worth leaning into what a double-edged sword generative AI is. For all the things that it's going to make faster, it makes those things faster and cheaper for both sides. So as somebody that works with both extremely large law firms and small law firms, let me tell you, the plaintiff's bar is much, much faster at adopting technologies. They are cranking out complaints. There are products out there that are trolling filings for anything that's inconsistent and turning those into complaints immediately. There is going to be a gold mine of opportunities. I think even in M&A, I think you're going to see companies be more aggressive because things like diligence should be better, cheaper, faster, which means it should be diligence, right? It shouldn't be just rubber stamping the deal that people want to do. So you should be able to go out and for a reasonable cost, find out whether this acquisition target is really worth it. You can go to court for a reasonable cost. So I think while it might reduce the cost of tasks, it will also increase the number of tasks. That's also just basic economics, right? So Jevons paradox or elasticity of demand. When cost of things go down, people want it more. I run a small company. We're quite profitable. We have cash, but I don't often want to go to my law firms, and I work with law firms, because the cost of a task is so high. So my budget is really low. I'm excited for a time when I want to use my law firms all the time. They're really smart. They're really good at stuff, but I don't. And so I think smaller companies will open up their wallet, not close it off when they can have access. So I just think it will definitely cut both ways. I don't have a prediction as to where it will end up. But if I'm you all, I'm thinking about where is it super obvious that there's going to be more work. Figure out how to lower the cost per unit of whatever that work is, but make as much money, if not more. There's no reason why it should cut in the medium term. In the long term, maybe robots do all of it. Who knows? But I think that's a really long way off.
Nikki, tell me where the bright line is here. There's some tasks that I don't need to go to outside counsel for anymore. And let's just get clear on where is that bright line, right? Outside counsel, I needed it for information. I needed information instantly, and I'd go to outside counsel. Today, I go for knowledge. Today, I go for judgment. I need that judgment, and I need more judgment. So I'm going to take the opposite of where Joe was. I need my outside counsel more now than ever before because I'm freed up to do more, and because I have more businesses on my desk than I had before, because I couldn't run 5 businesses. I could only run 2. Now I run 5. Now I need outside counsel to give me that judgment. I can get some of the answers and some of the info, but judgment, strategy, and clarity, where do you come down on that? And then what am I going to do? Hold on one second. Let me see what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Angela from GM and just kind of do a little Cowan roulette. And then I'm going to do Dan Vasquez from Rocket Mortgage and see what he has to say. So that's a little Cowan roulette, but I'm going to go to you first.
Yeah, this is, I think clients really have the power on their side with this technology. It can be a real force multiplier for you. If you think of legal work as a triangle, the work that sits at the bottom, which is a lot of what legal professionals spend their time on, which is repetitive, it's high volume, but not necessarily high value. That's the stuff that can really be automated, where this technology can really be impactful. And it's also stuff that if you get good enough at using the technology internally as clients, you'll be able to keep internal. For law firms, the good news is the stuff at the top of the pyramid, which, as David said, is really where legal expertise comes in. That's what you'll be paying your firms for. It's not all bad news for firms, because I think they'll actually be able to charge more for that top of the pyramid type of work. And I also think there are other ways of getting value from this technology. It's not just about faster and higher productivity. It's also about the fact that this technology lets you do things that were actually not feasible before. It allows you to get your arms around huge data sets that were previously kind of impervious, and to be able to derive actionable insights from that data. So that is a benefit both on the law firm side and also on the client side. I think the real opportunity comes from, actually, as Toby mentioned previously, the opportunity to work together as law firm and client. And previously, if you looked at innovation and where some of the most radical innovation was happening in the legal space was when law firms went to their clients and said, where can we really support you to build something that it makes a significant difference to the way that we provide client services or the way that you do your work. Now we're seeing that, but add a vendor into the mix. So law firms that are working with high-powered AI vendors in a partnership model to completely transform the way that they deliver client services, that's where there is true value. And that increases the relationship between the law firm and the client. It ensures that you're able to get the work done effectively, but it's actually truly transformational. And I think there is benefit on both sides to that kind of model.
Nikki, in just 60 seconds, and then I want to go to Dan, and I want to go to Angela, and I want to go out to the audience. Can you give me an example of one of your clients that's collaborating? They're sitting around the table, they're co-creating a solution. They're living in the future that just was not possible before, where they're looking at a challenge and they're bringing in outside tech plus their challenges. Can you give us an example of that?
Yeah, I was at a conference yesterday, and EY was in the room showcasing a solution that they had built with a client in India, a large law firm, which was a regulatory review solution. And it's the kind of thing I wish we were seeing more of. I think often when we think of use cases for generative AI, we're seeing people interact with ChatGPT, or we're seeing mention of things, but we're not actually seeing what it can do. Seeing this in action was profoundly impactful, because they had worked with a client to develop something where the technology had absorbed the regulatory regimes from multiple jurisdictions. It had also absorbed the forms that needed to be used for compliance purposes. And they had built an agent leveraging large language model technology that was able to achieve multiple steps, review regulations, take those regulatory rules and compare against incoming documents, provide an output that was an advice effectively pinpointing exactly where there were risks, and then also create the form that would remediate those risks. So it was a workflow, but the thing that I think is probably most important for legal professionals is still to have an eye on what is happening at each stage. And they had built it that way. So in every step of the process, you still could see what was happening. You could check it, verify it, make sure that things were happening as they should. That was really quite impactful.
Nice. Questions and/or an example that anybody wants to share? Questions going once. Angela's coming up. I need a mic for Angela. Where's Dan? Dan from Rocket. Is Dan in the room yet? He was. Oh, there he is. See, you heard me call your name and you're like, I got to get out of here. I'm already out.
Back to the floor. I had to go take a call. How can I help you?
So save Angela for a moment, because she really doesn't want to tell us a story. Tell us a story. How is the co-creation with outside counsel working with you these days?
Co-creation of what exactly?
Solutions, where you sit down with outside counsel, or it can be co-creation within in your role at Rocket.
Yeah, well, we bring in outside counsel, I think, like anybody, to have, that third-party opinion. And I think with AI, certainly that's my role, is driving our AI strategy forward. It's been as important as ever to gather as many opinions as possible. We may have interpretation of regulations or how they might be applied or how they might be written in the future, but getting as many opinions as possible on that, and making sure that we stay on the right side of, whichever history is going to go with this. There's just so many unknowns. So we pull folks in as much as we can.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Andrew Lee, you're really a responder, right? You're not driving this as much as you're responding. We're going to get you a microphone just up,
Okay.
and there it is. How is this impacting you? What's resonating with you in this conversation?
Well, it's all interesting, right? And how are we going to move forward? And we talked a little earlier, we talked about what the cost savings would be. And I said, we will absorb that. It will be something that we look for. We want to do more cheaper, right? And you're looking at it, how can the cost go up, or how can the law firms make more money? Well, we're looking at it as a company, and by the way, these are my views, not GM's views. But, we are looking at it as, how can we get things done, more things done for us at less cost? So I think there is some balance that needs to be achieved. Like you said, we need to all move forward, so we're all profitable, we're all doing better. But it's a big thing for us as a company.
What's the level of intensity in demanding or raising expectations of outside counsel? You had mentioned to me that you'd been on this pricing pathway for about 6 years now, and that for 6 years, iteratively, you've gotten better and better at the pricing model. What do you expect from outside counsel in terms of their use of AI and generative AI and next-gen technology?
Well, that makes it better for them, right? If they can achieve the goals that we want and still maintain those prices, that's what we want. We want more work cheaper, right? I think that's the goal, right, for everyone. And this allows us to do that. We should be able to get more work done. We should have more things that we have on our plate with less overhead.
Anybody else want to make a comment? Toby, I'm going to come to you because I know that you're the expert on that. Anybody else want to make a comment of what they expect of outside counsel? Here are the demands that I have. It doesn't sound like anybody has a problem with outside counsel grabbing margin. If they can do more for less, and you've got a fixed fee, that's fantastic, right? It's a win for you. I've got a hand up, if you would. Dennis Kennedy, if you would. Dennis, who are you? Where are you? And your comment.
Sorry. I'm Dennis Kennedy. I'm the director of MSU's Center for Law, Technology, and Innovation, and I've been around this space for a long time. So the question I want to ask, and what I thought, I used to be in-house at MasterCard, so I have that perspective as well. So when I think about this, and the panel was saying this as well, you talk about the top of the pyramid work of law firms being safe, I think is the best way to describe it. When I think about it, I say that's where the opportunity is to use the AI to just take that top off. And that's what I would go after. And leave the low-level stuff to the outside firms, get the lower cost there. I have a set of prompts that I can take a business idea and have a group of McKinsey partners give me advice on it. And I save $1 million, right? Conceptually, by doing that as a first thing. So my question is, are we looking too low where we see the savings with AI and not looking at the high end? And does that by implication mean maybe there's something really interesting right in the middle?
Well, there's savings in this capability, so it's a two-part question. Is that possible, number one, and then what does that lead to in the savings? Toby?
Well, hi, Dennis. Good to see you. Can I come back to that? Because I want to give an example that I think will be very helpful for the audience.
Sure.
How to do this. And this is a pre-Gen AI example. And I can talk about it publicly because we won the ACC Value Challenge Award for this. It was when I was at Perkins Coie and the client was 7-Eleven. And it was me and the relationship partner meeting with the client. And we identified a problem. It wasn't like I like the electricity thing. It's like, where are we going to use electricity today? Let's have a meeting. It was like, what is the problem? And the problem was contract review. We were doing their tech review, but they had this broader set of issues. And so I met with the AGC, a wonderful woman named Kristen Cook, and I said, well, what's the problem? She goes, we don't know how many contracts. We have no idea what our cost is per contract. And so they had this problem. And I was the pricing guy, and I said, well, what if we did a volume fixed fee deal on this, but let's add in a layer of innovation. And this is a very sophisticated innovation. Instead of emailing the document to us, they answered 6 questions and attached the document and hit go. That reduced the cost per matter by 18%. Because we'd run an analysis, and on average, that'd be 12 emails back and forth before we had enough information to start practicing law. It was a very simple thing. It was controversial in the legal department. There were lawyers there that said, this is not going to work, and we're not going to do this. Ultimately, they became the biggest promoters of this. What did we do on the Perkins side? We started hiring non-partner track lawyers so that we could bring our costs down. So I would be saying in the Gen AI environment, you'd use Gen AI to do that. But this is innovating on the business level and then using technology to do that. And it was a strong partnership between the law firm and the client. So I wanted to throw that out. So both sides of this, and again, I like the idea of the vendor being part of this. The tech we used was relatively simple. It was HiQ and Neota Logic, so it was just off-the-shelf stuff. Didn't take a lot of customization, but it was all of those partners coming together. In fact, the last thing I'll say, the general counsel told me she thought the data was more valuable than the service. And I said, tell me about that. She goes, well, we have a reputation of being the department of slow and no. And the business units, we were saying, we can't get these contracts signed. And so we had data that said, here's the date Perkins received it, here's the date it went back to the legal department, here's the date it went to the business unit. And we clearly showed that the business unit was the bottleneck.
Let's see if I can get the answer to that. So let me go to Esther. Esther, is that a Harvey thing now? Is that something that Harvey can address? And then I want to go back to Dennis's question.
Well, we use several different technologies to do something like that, but and we do have a contract review process in place, but it does give an example of how we can move faster and better alongside what our clients' needs are when we use these technologies so that we don't become the bottleneck. We want to be able to move at the pace that our clients' businesses are moving.
Can I just, sorry, David, to interrupt. I think it's important to come back to Dennis's point. Just because, look, this technology is really powerful, but on October 7th, Apple released a paper, the findings of which were, this technology does not reason. That's not what it does. It's not a reasoning technology. It predicts the next most appropriate word in a sentence. That's still what it does. This hasn't changed. It is incredibly powerful, but I don't think it's necessarily sensible to think of it as more than what it is. Connor talked about a 2-year-old. Some people, the head of technology at Meta has talked about it as having the same intelligence as a cat, which means that it's able to plan.
Not my cat.
But when my cat pounces on me with its claws out because it wants to be fed, it knows that it's planning for an outcome, which is to be fed. But it doesn't understand that there might be consequences of that beyond what it's planning. It's not reasoning in the same way that a human does. So I do think we need to be realistic about it. It's incredibly powerful, but there are certain ways where it is optimally useful and other ways where it really shouldn't be used.
Dennis, there's a gentleman next to you that also had a question. And I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
I'm not nearly as famous as Dennis is, so that's fine. My name is Logan Patman. I work in-house at Aptiv. It's an auto technology company, a supplier. I guess my question or example, you asked how would clients want their law firm partners to use AI or technology for better value? And an example came to my mind. At the end of 2023, we updated our general terms and conditions. We used the law firm, no secret, it was Honickman. And if you have worked with Honickman, you know that the prices are what the prices are. They did a really good job updating our general terms and conditions. So the following year, this year, we reached out to them to help update our machinery and equipment M&E terms and conditions. And when the price came back, my team was kind of shocked. We were like, "Wow, you just did this work for us. Could you use, the previous work to do the new work, because they're all related?" And I think just listening to you all speak, if there was a way to basically, take the work that had been done and say, hey, generative AI, I can't speak, model the M&E terms update on the same updates that were made to the general terms and conditions, and then have someone like review them. I think that might have been a way to do cost savings. It would have saved the firm time and then brought down the price, and I guess made us happier as a customer and save time on the firm end. So I think that's, just listening to you all speak, it sounds like that could have been a use AI to kind of move things along situation.
Or that's where we're going. That's next year. What's next year's project? What do we got coming in 2025? Esther, are you paying attention?
Esther.
2025, we've got a new project coming, Esther. Ryan, do you want to take that? You want to pick? No, you don't want to touch that.
I'm good.
Anybody want to grab that? Like, what does 2025 look like on that? It's promising.
I'll give it a shot. My view, and this is following after the ILTA conference, was I saw a lot of platforms, so to speak, not solutions. And I think we're going to start seeing more and more solutions. I'm guessing you're starting to see that emerging in what you're seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the moment, what we have are point solutions and platforms. But what's interesting is a lot of the platforms are themselves also developing solutions within the platform. So I do think we're getting closer to being able to narrow the number of technologies that we need to have. But it's still really important to think strategically about what are the high value problems that you need to solve in order to get true ROI from the technology, and then investing accordingly. So what are the platform solutions that offer those use cases within them? Or what are the point solutions you're willing to invest in that address those specific problems? I think looking at this from the perspective of the goals that you have as a business is really critical.
So I think that's a great demand coming from outside counsel. I think inside counsel. I think that's a great demand coming from corporate counsel to say, hey, here's what we expect. And I think that's what's going to accelerate and move the needle. When corporate counsel begins to demand, what they expect, I think everyone will begin to become radically curious and start playing with it. I'm going to use a Detroit example again and see if this hunts, if I get any comment from the audience. So when you learn to drive a car, right, you might either remember or you've recently taught someone to drive a car. What's the first thing that happens? What do you first have to do? You got to go down to DMV or I had to go down to DMV once upon a time and get anybody remember what you had to get?
The learner's permit.
You had to get a learner's permit. But before you get the learner's permit, what did you need? But before they took the test, what did you need? You needed that little manual. Anybody remember that little book you had to study? These were the rules of the road. You had to learn the rules of the road. This is what a stop sign is. This is how you get along with all the other cars. Then you got your learner's permit. Then you started to drive. Where are we on the continuum today? How many of you have your learner's permit? No, some of you do. I mean, in the world of AI, how many learner's permits? How many drivers? How many race car drivers? I did not get the response I was looking for there, Nikki. Nikki, I turn it over to you. That did not go well at all.
You know what? I was thinking about this last night. There are certain things that I do now personally that are completely different than how I used to do them before. Not for legal work, but just in my life. Or I'll give you an example. We publish a lot of articles and we do interviews with people. And before I would do an interview with someone and maybe we'd get a transcript and then I would take that and painstakingly change it into something that was publication ready. Now I have a prompt that I use. It's a pre-baked prompt that I know works really well for the type of article that I want to publish. I take the transcript, I upload the prompt, I upload the transcript, and I immediately get something that is much closer to publication ready than it used to be. And it saves me a huge amount of time. I don't take that and immediately publish it. There's still editing involved, but it has saved me a lot of time. That is just my consistent process now. Every time I do that workflow, that's what I do. And I think probably all of us are finding that in certain aspects of our lives. I don't know, Connor's example about planning a trip, probably a lot of people now are using AI to help with trip planning and that kind of thing. If you think about the people in your organizations, they will be doing the same things, and some of them will be doing that with AI. And unfortunately, the reality is they may be doing that whether or not you have condoned it. So one story I heard recently was of someone who worked in a law firm, not Honigman, who the firm itself had said, we don't want you to use ChatGPT, and we don't yet have access to a legal generative AI tool, so we don't really want you using this for client work yet. And he just started bringing his iPad to work because he'd become so reliant on this technology outside of work, he needed access to it for what he was doing at work. So my guess is that the same way we're starting to see our own processes change really quite radically outside of work, that will just start happening incrementally at work until a year from now, 2 years from now, you'll look back and you'll go, oh my God, this has transformed. It might not be the massive transformation that I do think is ultimately coming, but that incremental step-by-step thing is coming.
Joe, we've only got a few more minutes. Can you give us a little foreshadowing of some of the technology? So we're familiar with chat, we're familiar with Copilot, we're familiar with Harvey. What's coming down the road that this audience is going to experience that they might not know about yet?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, even using the words "we're familiar with Harvey," I think is almost by definition kind of wrong to some degree. Every one of these tools, including Harvey, is evolving at a rate that's incredible. So, one of the things we do is we work with young companies and some not so young companies to work with law firms and corporate counsel to find product market fit, right? Solve the problems that they actually have in real time. And one thing we bump up against regularly is, oh, I saw that last year. And last year was an entirely different universe. And I think we're seeing that.
But drop a couple of names of like, here's what you should be on the lookout for.
So I mean, I think that Nikki said it best. It is every pain point. I will name a few specifically, but I think that the better way to see it is, what are my pain points? And reach out to someone in the know. Look at Legal Tech Hub, which is awesome. Talk to us. Corporate secretarial is one that I will throw out there. Corporate secretarial is one of the most manual processes in the entire world. Anyone that has tons of entities all over the world and boards and board minutes, it's ridiculous, and it's really hard.
Well, there's a lot of contracts in the room.
Contracts. The truth is, though, that AI and contracting has been around for a long time. AI and litigation has been around for a long time, right?
You're not going to name names, are you?
No, it's getting better. It's getting much better. You mean the names of companies?
Yeah, I mean, what do I need to, what should I be looking for on the horizon? It's like they're ready for prime time.
So one company in the room with us, Expert Institute, one of the things that I think is amazing about what they're doing is they're using generative AI in the background. So the user of the technology goes onto a database. That database looks a lot like Westlaw. There's nothing magical from the point of the user except, wow, how did they get all this information at such a low cost? On the back end, there's a lot of magic happening, a lot of retrieval augmented generation, and a lot of ways to pull things in that used to take, honestly, weeks, that they have down to like a couple days with a little bit of human interaction.
We've got a minute before we go to a commercial break. Nikki, who's your pick for 2025? Who's your draft pick for 2025? And then Toby, you get a draft pick.
I'm going to be really boring here and say Harvey. I think Harvey is at really number one at the moment. If you're looking at platform, if you're looking at something narrower, there's some really interesting solutions operating in the deal space. So I would look out for that. And for contracts, there's so much happening. My advice would just be really...
No. You got to pick one.
I have to pick
this
one?
This is Meet the Press.
Oh,
You've got 30 seconds to give us a
my
pick.
entire platform is about Agnosticism, David.
Toby?
Yeah, mine's not. I could throw a name.
Yeah, you can throw out
You
names.
missed your opportunity.
So I'm going to throw out one no one in this room has probably heard of. It's called Servient, and it is a generative AI, legal-specific large language model that sits behind the firewall.
Fantastic.
And you can use it on client work, you can use it in the back office, you can use it anywhere. It solves a lot of the issues. Servient traditionally was an e-discovery company.
Yep.
So they know how to, they can respect ethical walls. They understand security and all these sorts of things. They're a small company, they're sort of rising up, but that's a unique one to look at.
Can I? Yeah.
Oh, now they all have
we're
ideas,
gonna.
you see?
So one of the most interesting things is solutions that are about helping you deploy AI securely. And there's one called Truth Systems, which is about detecting hallucinations in existing generative AI products that you have, and then fixing those hallucinations. So what comes to you and to your lawyers is much higher reliability than what you would otherwise have.
Last thing I would say is look to the people behind the technologies and look to the workflows, because generative AI is a handful of base models that are all the same. Everybody is picking from OpenAI, Anthropic, blah, blah, blah. Now, things like that have traditionally excellent workflows, like eDiscovery, like Kira, then layer on those same technologies, and you have things that feel incredibly new and fresh, and do a lot more, but the lawyers know how to use them. So low tech plus high tech.
Please help me thank our panel.
Thank you.
Joe, thank you so much.
Is that it?